All right, everybody. Good afternoon. I was just about to say good morning. Good afternoon. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss first live stream for the 2023 season. And it was an impromptu stream. I just really wanted to just jump on and touch base with you guys. I mean, I know, hopefully you had the notification bell clicked. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. So that way you're notified when new videos are added and when live streams are happening as well. Going to have pretty much the same schedule this season as I did last season. Of course, Sunday will be the prime day. Make sure you're subscribed just for that, because on Sunday alone, when any injuries hit, 15, 20 seconds later, I have an instant analysis video up. And then plus, at the end of the games on Sunday night, we have a wrap up. We also have Football Friday streams, any kind of breaking news during the week. We'll do that as well. So make sure you hit the subscribe and the notification button as well. And make sure you pick up a copy of my 2023 Fantasy Sports Boss Draft Guide. It's available on Amazon. Also, you could pick up the PDF version at the homepage of the channel just by clicking the PayPal link, and I can send you the draft guide through PDF, which is almost instantaneous. Whereas if you go to Amazon and pick up the guide there, it's a paperback book. It'll probably take a couple of days, depending on if you have Prime membership or not. But anyway, so make sure you have all that stuff squared away. Certainly I've started to go full bore into my rankings. I started putting together some rough cheat sheets, if you will. And really, honestly, it's the same thing I talked about at the end of last season. Two things. One is that I want Travis Kelce in the first round, and I've made no secret of that in any of the videos that you've seen that I've discussed him from the end of last season to now. The one of the two leagues I won last year, I had Kelce. He was on more fantasy championship teams in Yahoo than any other player. Scored 100 more fantasy points than the second highest tight end. He's an absolute cheat code. No more Juju Smith-Schuster. No more Mecole Hardman. Nothing but inexperience among the wide receivers, other than the very inconsistent Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So Kelce is going to feast again. I know he's getting up there in age. He's 34, wear and tear, all that stuff. But he is at the very top of my list. I want him in the first round. I already did a mock draft. I posted that video the other day where I took him with the 4th overall pick. If I had the number 1 pick, I probably still would go Kelce. I would think to also consider Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, who I love. Those are the 3 guys I want more than anybody else, with Bijan Robinson number 4. And you're probably saying, oh, you don't take any running backs. How could you have Bijan Robinson in there? Well, you know what? There's exceptions to everything. And Bijan Robinson, I think, is the best running back since Saquon Barkley, maybe even better than Barkley. And we all know how good Barkley was as a rookie. But he's going to be an absolute monster stud. But he's 4th on my list. I would only take him if the other 3 guys I mentioned are gone. But I'm going to build my team around Kelce. Second round, hope to get Garrett Wilson, because Garrett Wilson's going to catch 100 passes with Aaron Rodgers. You could take it to the bank. Garrett Wilson's going to have a monster breakout. And then I want one of those second-tier running backs. Tier 1 is Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, all those guys, Derrick Henry. But the next tier, the Travis Etiennes, the Ramondre Stevensons, the Breece Hall, Miles Sanders, who I seem to like more than most people in the industry. So Miles Sanders not getting the love that I'm giving him. Listen, the Panthers didn't sign him to that contract to make him a committee back. I mean, it's only Chuba Hubbard, and we know how mediocre he is. Sanders is going to feast. He proved last season that he could score. He's a very underrated receiver. The Eagles really didn't use him as much catching the football out of the backfield last season. He's going to get those opportunities, especially with a rookie quarterback and Bryce Young. I want Miles Sanders everywhere. I love Travis Etienne. I love Breece Hall. Justin Livingston, how you doing? Breece Hall, week 1. I know you asked me that right off the bat. And guys, make sure you put questions in the comment box. When Football Friday starts too, sometimes it gets a little crowded in here and I don't get to every question. So, just always keep repeating them. I didn't let anybody know that I was going live today, so it should be pretty quiet in here. But in terms of Breece Hall, I think he's going to be ready week 1. They might baby him a little bit initially. They have Zonovan Knight. They have Michael Carter. I think they might baby him just a little bit initially, but he's going to be a stud. I mean, he was a stud last season before he got hurt. I'm all about Breece Hall. I've said it already. If I can't, I think Ramondre Stevenson's going to be a second round back. I think Breece Hall is going to be a second round back. I think ETN could fall to the third, late second, early third, and Sanders will be there in the third. So, and then I just did an earlier video today about Rachaad White, who I think if you could pair him, get him in the fifth round and pair him with a Miles Sanders, you're good to go. But to answer your question, Justin, I think he will be ready, but there's a lot invested in him. They don't need to rush him back. I mean, they have Aaron Rodgers, for God's sakes, now. They don't need to rely on the running game. So I think they will bring him along slowly. Fantasy football girl advice. How are you? Will DeAndre Swift have a good season? Man, has there anybody been more polarizing than DeAndre Swift the last couple of years? He burned everybody last year. Let's face it. DeAndre Swift, and I was a sucker for him too. I had him as a late first round, early second round pick. I didn't own him anywhere, but he went belly up. I mean, and a couple of things with Swift that we've kind of learned to this point. He's injury prone. Obviously, there's only a certain amount of carries DeAndre Swift can get before the injuries start again. Dan Campbell realized that last year. That's why he liberally used Jamal Williams. And the problem with Swift, and yes, he's getting a fresh start with Philadelphia. This is good news on surface, right? But it's a horrible landing spot. They brought in Rashad Penny, who has his own injury issues. I know that, but they also have, Kenneth Gainwell, who's very capable. He'll play on third downs, and they have Jalen Hurts, a quarterback who's going to keep the football more often than not around the goal line and take it in himself. So Jalen Hurts is going to steal touchdowns from DeAndre Swift. He's going to steal touchdowns from Rashad Penny. And all things being equal, Penny would get the goal line carry over Swift. So Swift is off my list. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That axiom works for DeAndre Swift. So I'm not chasing him anywhere. I don't want anything to do that with that entire backfield. There's certain teams, and that's another thing I wanted to kind of touch on. There are certain teams offensively I'm just avoiding altogether. All the pieces, the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers. Indianapolis Colts right off the bat come to mind. Jonathan Taylor's going to be a late first round pick. I got burned by him last year. Luckily, I still was able to win that league where I took him number one, but it was because of Kelsey. I want nothing to do with the Indianapolis Colts receivers. Michael Pittman, same thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers, that's another team. A Kenny Pickett-led team. I don't want anything to do with Najee Harris, who's the most boring running back in football. Deontay Johnson, who I do like. I respect his ability, but we saw how Deontay Johnson's numbers tanked last season with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. I don't want anybody on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm avoiding that group as well. Philadelphia Eagle running backs. Don't want any of those guys as well. I do love the receivers, though. There's no doubt about it. I mean, obviously, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are going to be awesome. But there's just certain teams. The Buccaneer receivers, I already did a piece on that. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Duncan, how are you? I don't want anything to do with the Tampa Bay receivers either. So there's a lot of offensive teams that, you just should not be looking at this season. And also, too, what's interesting is the shift is happening. I talked about this prior to last season, about how running backs are just not worth it in round one. And more publications have come along to my line of thinking this season in terms of going receiver round one, minimizing that risk with your first round pick. In fantasy football, if you get that first round pick wrong and the guy busts, whether it's injury or underperformance, you're totally screwed. You could still recover from that. I did with Jonathan Taylor last season, still won my league. But it's very difficult. And the running back position, there are more busts there than any other position by a mile. So, just look over the last, couple of years, all of the big time guys that had gotten injured, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon had injury issues, Alvin Kamara. The list goes on and on and on. So much frustration. DeAndre Swift last season. Joe Mixon was not good. Take out that one game that he had where he went, 50 something points. It's all going to be receivers for me. And I know that, one of the annual magazines that came out, Lindy's, that their draft guide I think is coming out in the next couple of weeks. I just wanted to pull up. They always post their top 10 on the front cover, and I think almost all of them were wide receivers, or the majority of them were wide receivers. So I'm pulling it up now. They have Justin Jefferson They have McCaffrey first. And then after McCaffrey, they have Jefferson second, Chase third, Cooper Kupp fourth. Boy, he's scary, Cooper Kupp, isn't he? Tyreek Hill fifth. So four of the top five guys they have as wide receivers. And then they go back to the running backs. They have Jonathan Taylor sixth. They have Austin Eckler seventh. I can't believe they have Taylor ahead of him. Travis Kelce eighth, Barkley ninth, and Bijan Robinson 10th. So listen, Stephon Diggs is a first-round pick again in my mind. Davante Adams is not. I don't want Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't want Jimmy Garoppolo throwing passes to my ace wide receiver. So, I'm not on Davante Adams this season. But I'm telling you right now, and a lot of these guys that on that list that I just read you are aging. Christian McCaffrey going into his age 28 season. You have Austin Eckler. I have it written down here. Eckler, 28. Barkley, 26. He's still got tread on the tires there. But, I mean, look at this. Derrick Henry is 29. Nick Chubb, 27. He's had a lot of carries. Aaron Jones is 28. Mixon is an old 27. Dalvin Cook, who's going to be released any day now, he's 28. These prime Kamara, 28. Connor is 28. You don't want any of these guys. You just don't. The trends, are all of them going to bust? No. But the majority, sure. They're going to either get hurt or they're going to see an erosion in their numbers. Like Austin Eckler scares the hell out of me. Christian McCaffrey scares the hell out of me. There's no way McCaffrey's going to stay this healthy for the second season in a row. There's just no way. Austin Eckler, all of that mileage that he's got. And here's the telling thing, too. They gave him permission, talking about Austin Eckler, to seek a trade, and nobody bit. Why? Because he's 28, and he's an old 28. He's taken a lot of pounding the last couple of years. Again, just don't do it, Go with that list I told you about, all right? ETN, Dameon Pierce, Miles Sanders, Breece Hall, even Cam Akers, who I'm not in love with. He's 24. Alexander Madison, Ramondre Stevenson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. Those are the guys you should be looking to get in bed with. Rachaad White for running back. Even Antonio Gibson. I like Antonio Gibson this season. I'm fine with Brian Williams too. In terms of Robinson, excuse me. I'm Brian Robinson. I'm fine with him as well. So even though he doesn't catch passes, although he's capable of catching passes, but that's what Gibson's for. All of those guys I'd rather have. Duncan Petrelli, 10-team full PPR. I get to keep Tony Pollard for an 8th-round pick. That's a steal. Which draft spot would be my best bet to get 2 elite wide receivers in the first 2 rounds? All the top 15 wide receivers are there. Well, you got to be towards the back of the first round. So 2 elite. So you could get Garrett Wilson's going to be elite. So if you are in the 12th spot, you could start with Diggs, who I think is going to be there at 12, and I would go immediately to Garrett Wilson. You might think, beginning of round 2, that's early for Garrett Wilson. Trust me, he's going to ball out this season. He did as good as he possibly could do last season with that fucking awful Zach Wilson. I mean, it was brutal watching Zach Wilson last season. I'm all in on Garrett Wilson. So that's where I would say go 12, take the 12 spot. Diggs should be there. You could go him, and then you can go Garrett Wilson. I think both of those guys are going to be absolute studs. Cooper Kupp, I was asked about Cooper Kupp. There's bounce back appeal with him, being healthy, but he's had 2 serious injuries the last, 4 years. How old is he now? I think he's 29. So, he's right up on that age 30, which is the line of demarcation for me with receivers. That's why I'm out on Davante Adams. Keenan Allen, we saw how he aged last season. We saw Mike Williams, who's pushing up against 30, how he also aged last season. And also with Kupp, they have a stationary quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who, if he gets popped, could miss significant time again. I think he's 1 concussion away from retirement, and that's going to drag down Cooper Kupp's numbers. That's an aspect you can't ever overlook, too. When you invest in a receiver, you have to look at the injury-prone nature of the quarterback. That's why I was always comfortable taking Chris Godwin, Mike Evans with Tom Brady, because Brady never missed a start. He was always there. Tyreek Hill when he was with Pat Mahomes. But And you could throw Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in there, given Tua Tagovailoa's injury issues, Cooper Kupp with Matthew Stafford. This is risk. The players are great, no doubt about it, but they're attached to quarterbacks who could go out any given week, given their histories, and then they will sink your stock as well. That's why investing in Stephon Diggs is always great, because Josh Allen never misses time. So, over the years, you always felt comfortable drafting a Green Bay receiver when Brett Favre was the quarterback, or with the Vikings, because he played every single week. So this is an aspect too that you also have to look at. It'll be interesting to see. But Cooper Kupp, he's always tempting. There's no doubt about it. It's very tempting for sure. And Justin made a good point between Garrett, Amon-Ra, St. Brown. I would take them over Jalen Waddle for what I just talked about, Justin. I think Jalen Waddle's risky because he's the second wideout on his team, whereas Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Garrett Wilson aren't. And Duncan, what you said before, you could go Diggs and Amon-Ra, St. Brown too. I mean, if you want to go Amon-Ra, St. Brown over Garrett Wilson, I'm good with that. I think Wilson's going to score more touchdowns than St. Brown, and he might have more yardage, but St. Brown could have more receptions. So I dig GW too. I'm telling you, get on the ground floor. He's going to be a first-round pick next season for sure. What was I saying before that? I forget now. So you got to weigh the risk when it comes to attaching receivers to their quarterback. Like I said, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen never misses time. Kupp burned a lot of people last year. And the thing too about Kupp is that he was actually on his way to another monstrous season. There's no doubt the numbers are going to be there when he's on the field with Matthew Stafford. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's just silly the way how consistent he is, game after game after game. But again, how high are you willing to use a first round pick on Cooper Kupp when you know that there's one hit that could put out Matthew Stafford for the entire season? So that's the scary part for sure. But so like I said, coming up, we're still only in June, but the season's going to get here before you know it. Going to be doing more mock drafts. Anything else you guys want me to do, I'd be more than willing to do as well. Going to be doing at least one live stream a week as we get closer to the season, maybe add a second one. I'm in 2 leagues again this year, same 2 I was in last year. I like to keep it only 2. That way I'm not rooting for everybody, every week. And I never like to have too many teams for that reason. I hate when I have to root for like half the NFL, but there'll be the usual stuff that I did last season, the Football Friday. You could always post comments too on the message board on the Yahoo homepage. on the YouTube homepage. My draft guide's available. Make sure you pick that up. And if you want the PDF version, just use the buy now link, and I'll usually email that out to you within an hour once I get the PayPal, what's the word I'm looking for? The notification. That's it. So, a lot of good stuff coming up. But again, I'm totally adamant about going Kelsey or receiver in the first round, getting one of those dual threat quarterbacks, and just going upside at running back. You could wait to the 3rd round and take your first running back, and you could come back later on in the 4th or 5th round and get Rachaad White. You can get Antonio Gibson. You can get Brian Robinson. I said to Rachaad White, Alexander Madison, although I think his draft price is going to jump as we get closer because Dalvin Cook will be gone. I just don't want to take these guys that are over the hill or that are at the tipping point. Like I said in the one video about Derrick Henry, if you take Derrick Henry, you're doing it all wrong. So these are just lessons that I've learned over the years, and hopefully that will lead you guys to success this season as well. And that's what I'm here for. So again, just make sure you keep, tuning in, make sure you have the notification button hit and everything else. Hey Blair, how you doing? Hopefully I don't make the mistake again of drafting 2 running backs to begin the draft. Don't do that. Don't draft 2 running backs. And that was the way to go for years. I mean, in the 90s, it was always running back. You always did that. Running back. There was so many bell cow backs. That's just the way it was. And I think things started to shift when Antonio Brown started to go nuts with those 120 catch seasons, I really think that's when it started. I think Antonio Brown is the one that really brought forth, especially in PPR leagues, that brought forth the idea of using a first round pick on a wide receiver. So somebody just asked me about quarterbacks. That was Duncan. So as far as the quarterbacks, Duncan, I have the dual threat quarterbacks. I have it ranked. This is how I have it ranked. I have Josh Allen number 1, Pat Mahomes number 2, Jalen Hurts number 3. I have Lamar Jackson number 4. I love Lamar Jackson this season. I loved him last season, even though he burned me a little bit. But he's got much more offensive help this season. I have Joe Burrow 5th, Justin Fields 6th. I have Lawrence 7th. I think that I might flip those two. I think Lawrence is more durable. As a matter of fact, I'm going to flip those two. So I'm going to have Lawrence 6, Fields 7, Herbert 8. I have Deshaun Watson 9. I have Daniel Jones 10, Rodgers 11. I have Geno Smith 12, and I love Geno Smith. I love Deshaun Watson. I love Trevor Lawrence, and I love Lamar Jackson. One of those 4 going to be my quarterback. I did the mock draft the other day. I ended up with Trevor Lawrence. I love Jackson. I love Lawrence. I love Watson. I love Geno Smith. Geno Smith is completely underrated. Again, they just got Jackson Smith from Ohio State to go with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Find me a better trio of receivers on one team in the NFL. It's going to be a challenge to do that. That's how good that offense is. And you have a running game now with Charbonnet from UCLA, who catches the football really well, joining Kenneth Walker, who's a phenomenal runner in the Nick Chubb mode. So that's how I have it. Those are your dual threat. You have Dak Prescott right outside the top 12. I don't want to end up with Aaron Rodgers. Daniel Jones, I'm fine with him as a backup. And I'm a Giant fan, but I don't want to rely on Daniel Jones as my starter. But it's either Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, or Geno Smith. Those will be my quarterbacks this season. And I do like Justin Fields. He helped win me my league last season, Justin Fields. I picked him up in the middle of the season when he started going nuts. But you saw when he got beat up and he couldn't really run much, in the fantasy playoffs last season, he was almost 0 because he's not a great passer. Just call a spade a spade. Justin Fields is not the greatest passer. Right? He has accuracy issues. These are all things that were attached to Anthony Richardson too, coming out of college with the Colts. Richardson really needs at least half a season to watch on the bench, but the Colts are just going to throw him in there and just hope for the best. Justin Fields scares me from a durability aspect. We know Watson's very durable. Lawrence is durable. Jackson is not overly durable now. He's starting to get a little fragile, but Geno Smith was durable last season. So I'm good with all 4 of those guys. And that's another commandment, guys. Durability. You need to have a durable quarterback. You can't go in, and that's what scares me too with Jalen Hurts. He's a small quarterback. When he runs and gets hit, missed a couple of games last season, that's a problem for him. So you got to be careful. I do think Justin Herbert's going to be a swell value. People are down on Justin Herbert because of the inconsistent play last season. But I think he's got good bounce back potential. They brought in Quentin Johnston to go with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and the other kid, the third receiver. Drawing a blank right now, I can't remember his name. But he's got really good, and obviously Eckler out of the backfield. He's got really good weapons, and I think it was a weird year for Herbert. I didn't anticipate him struggling as much as he did. And he was an absolute 0 in the fantasy football playoffs. You talk about a guy that just, was an abomination in the playoffs. That was Justin Herbert. So, his value will drop. And that's another thing, guys. It's like a game. It's like playing the stock market. You buy guys at their cheapest or cheaper value, and you sell high on guys at their maximum value. So like Austin Eckler, his value is never going to be higher than it is right now. So I'm not drafting him. Deshaun Watson, his value probably will never be lower. So it's a good buying opportunity. All right. Rashad White, his value is not that great. Good buying opportunity. So Miles Sanders, same thing. So that's what you got to do. You got to buy guys who have upside, but are also quite affordable at the draft table. And these are all the commandments, if you will, that will allow you to win. And listen, the Travis Kelce first round pick thing is generating a lot of discussion, and I knew it would, but I'm doing it. I'm absolutely doing it. He won me a league last season. He won a lot of people their leagues last season. You cannot match up with that production. The other 11 teams in your league don't stand a chance to even come close to matching his production. You saw Mark Andrews take a step back last season. It's just not going to happen. That's how much of an advantage. Kelce gave his owners a 5-point head start last season compared to the rest of the tight ends. 5-point head start, which is massive. He's the guy. So that's who I'm taking in the first round. Then it's either Jefferson or Chase, who I am debating in my head who I will take over the other. I'm actually considering Chase as my number one receiver, and that'll be a subject of another video. I'll be posting that soon, so look for that. All right, guys, it's just a quick stream, impromptu stream. I'm going to jump off now. Thank you for tuning in. Again, pick up the draft guide, hit the like button, subscribe. Have a great evening, guys. Look for more videos tomorrow. We will chat soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.